right, welcome back, sports fans. We're back again, and we actually have a name this week. Welcome to Off the Cuff with Monte and Geoff. Got some topics to talk about this week, but we're going to try a little different format. We're going to break things up, and that way you don't get tired of us all at one time. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, very good. So the topic we're going to talk about first actually is something that's affecting a lot of areas in the NFL right now, and that is the fact that Brian Flores, the former coach of the Miami Dolphins, has filed a class action lawsuit against the NFL and actually 3 teams within the NFL itself. Do you want to go into more of the details with that, Monty?
Sure. Brian Flores, if you don't know, he was the coach of the Miami Dolphins for the last 3 years. He was fired this year for performance issues, I believe.
Yep.
And then they did an interesting move after that. Is the ownership group of the Dolphins kind of smeared his name a little bit, saying that he was difficult to work with and he just was hard to get along with in general. And so they were trying to justify their firing. But since he got fired, a lot of information has come out about the situation that Flores is going on the counterattack. And I think personally that Flores was he was hurt by the firing, and he's firing back. He's trying to get even, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's necessarily even maybe get even. I wouldn't say is the right term, but maybe defending himself to a certain extent.
Sure, you can go that way, yeah.
His record, as far as NFL coaches goes, really was not that bad. Overall, it was 24-25, which I know that's under 500. But his first year, he was 5-11. So you take that out of there, and really they're 19 and 14, and that's a pretty respectable record in the NFL, I would say.
That's very good.
Just missed the playoffs. I think they just missed the playoffs last year.
Yeah, I think they did.
At 10-6, which, you know, that's
last year. Yeah,
yeah.
I was thinking this.
And even this year, I mean, they were right in the hunt till right at the end. So it's hard to see that maybe it was completely a performance issue that he got fired. Now, obviously, we don't know about if he was difficult to get along with or whatnot.
I had heard that he'd go a long time without even talking to any of his staff, which I thought was weird. But anyway, I don't know if you heard that. But yeah.
I did not hear that. That's strange, but you know, as we've seen, even with like Urban Meyer trying to go from college to the pros, every one of those guys that takes a head coaching position has a different personality and different ways of doing things, and sometimes it doesn't fit maybe the players so much, or even the organization of the management. And
it's fair. We should note too that Flores was a Belichick disciple, a
Yes.
Bill Belichick disciple.
Yes.
Which Belichick's disciples haven't had a lot of success in the NFL.
No.
In all honesty.
No, they haven't, which is kind of surprising. You know, as much success as Belichick has had in New England, that that experience with him and the interactions that they've gained while working with Belichick hasn't translated to more success in other places.
It is surprising.
But it hasn't. But then, and that leads us into the next step, because Belichick actually plays a really interesting role in this whole saga, this whole story with Flores. Because, like Monty said, he was fired. There was that issue with the people within the Dolphins organization kind of smearing a little bit on his name. Well, so Flores then was interviewed for.
There was a number of coaching jobs open.
Yes, there were 6 coaching jobs, I believe, open this year, and he had been set up for interviews with 3 of them at the time, and I think maybe even a 4th or 5th. I know the Broncos, or no, I'm sorry, not the Broncos, the Giants, the Saints, the Texans.
And those last 2 are still open.
Those last 2 are still open, but I think there was another one. But anyway, here's where the plot thickens. Do you want to explain more?
Well, I'll try. And I've heard 2 different scenarios on this, but basically, for the Giants job, Flores was going to go in and interview, and the first story I heard was 3 days prior to his interview, he got a text message from Bill Belichick congratulating him on getting the job for the New York Giants. Well, the funny thing is, Brian Gable was the guy that got the job for the New York Giants, but that hadn't been announced at that time. So Flores knew something was up, and he went ahead and did the interview, but he knew it was a sham interview in effect.
Yes.
Part of what people need to know too is the NFL has something called the Rooney Rule, which dictates that 2 minority candidates need to be interviewed for each head coaching job. And that's the only thing it says, I believe.
It does.
That's
It
the
doesn't.
only thing.
It
Nothing
doesn't.
else.
They have to be, and actually, I believe it says they have to be 2 external minority candidates.
Oh, external
so,
too.
Yeah, so
they can't be internal.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
all right.
so basically, it just means that you have to have 2 people outside of the organization that are of what would be considered the traditional minority groups to interview for that head coaching vacancy. And that's where, again, that's where it thickens. You know, Flores actually, in his class action suit, alleged that these interviews were all shams. You know, the Rooney Rule was being followed because they had to interview people, but as was the case with the Giants job, he didn't have a chance to get it. They'd already determined, or
before he even interviewed, they decided who the coach was.
They had decided who their new coach was going to be. So,
but that doesn't break the Rooney Rule necessarily, does it? Now, Jeff?
No,
that's the tricky part here.
That's the tricky part. It doesn't. The Rooney Rule just basically says you have to interview those candidates. So it brings in the whole idea of racism. Are the owners, which again, the Rooney Rule that was implemented by the NFL or mandated by the NFL to the owners was that they had to perform these particular functions when there were head coaching vacancies, but then the owners are left to their own devices to decide who the best candidate is. And so the question is there racism being involved in these coaching hires?
Well, the New York Giants have a new general manager, and that I don't know his name off the top of my head, but he came from the Buffalo Bills. I do know that. He was the general manager there, I believe, or assistant general manager. And Brian Gable was an offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills.
Yes.
So I believe there was a lot of, that's kind of why they hired him, I believe.
Yeah. And
right or wrong, you can argue that, I guess. But,
right.
But familiarity.
Yes, and you can't argue with that from the standpoint of there's definitely some familiarity, some up close and personal experience with what that coach has done with interactions with players and things like that.
He's a quarterback whisperer, and they want him to do that, whisper to Daniel Jones for the Giants.
Yes. So,
but what is his history with Belichick? Do you know? Gables? Is there a history there?
I don't know. That's
okay.
a good question.
I assume there would be, but I don't know. Maybe there's not.
Yeah. And there could be, but also I suppose playing in the same division, you get plenty of exposure to that, to that coach.
Sure. So Brian Flores, Brian Gable, right next to each other on your phone as you go down the order. So, so is this a case of Bill Belichick having a fat finger?
I think it is. I think it's one of. It's hard to say it's one of his biggest goofs because we all know about Deflategate, and we also know about about videotaping the other team and a bunch of stuff. Belichick isn't necessarily known for being the most virtuous of coaches, always following the rules. But this time it almost sounds like it was a
mistake.
It was an oops.
Well, here's what I can't wait for. And I'm really excited for this. If it does go to court, I want to see Belichick on the stand, have him answering questions. Can you see him up there? Because you see him after games, he gives you nothing. We're on to Cincinnati. We're on to whomever, So what's he going to do in a court of law?
Well, I'm curious.
God, I can't wait to find out.
Well, and I'm curious, is he going to show? If he is is he going to show up looking like some old dude?
Is he going to have a hoodie?
Yeah, is he going to have a hoodie on or a ripped hoodie that is falling off his shoulders?
You might see him in a suit for the first time.
It looks like he just got up after a rough night before. but anyway, yeah, and there's more to the whole Brian Flores allegations as well. That season that he went 5-11, he is alleging that the owner of the Dolphins told him that he would pay him $100,000 for every game that he lost, and from that standpoint, it was in Flores's opinion or his declaration basically was a way for them to try and get the number 1 draft pick because the team with the worst record ends up with the number 1 draft pick in the next year's draft. So, if this is true.
This is the most damning allegation.
Yes,
really.
I would say it is. And also, well, Monty was sharing some information with me earlier that there's also some allegations of tampering with other teams' players, which during the regular season, there's a period coaches cannot contact other teams' players and say, hey, you need to come play with us, or hey, we're looking to maybe get you to come to our side the next year. And it sounds like when they're under contract, I guess I should say already with the team, and it sounds like there may have been some strong indications that there may have been.
Flores alleges he was encouraged to meet a quarterback on another team, an unnamed quarterback, arranged by Ross on a yacht. So, did that happen? I mean, the meeting never actually happened, according to Flores, but it was supposed to happen.
Yeah, it seems to me, and again, we'll never know for sure, but man, the specificity of the details that he's putting out there makes you wonder he's either a really good storyteller or there might be some truth. What, where there's smoke, there's fire?
It looks like it here. You know, who knows?
Yeah, I don't know, but
I don't think he's going to win the Rooney Rule case. I don't believe that.
No,
but he's going to smear Ross as much as he can. It sounds like.
And you know, the thing about it is the last thing I want to say from my standpoint with this is you have to give it to Flores for having the gumption to do that, because to file that case for the simple fact of he could be jeopardizing his whole career.
Right. Because he still has a chance to
He
have a
still-
head coaching job.
Yeah,
he did.
Well, he was a final. I believe he was a finalist for the Saints job and the Texans job. So I
Right.
mean, there's two jobs out there that he's potentially, you know, in line to possibly get. And now all of a sudden he's filed this. And
He won't get him now.
no,
They won't hire him for nothing.
I
now.
really doubt it. And so, in some ways, you kind of have to. You know, you kind of have to say that's pretty impressive that you've got
It's a bold move.
It is a bold move. It is a bold move. So.
Yeah, we'll see. You know, he might go down as someone on the same level as Kaepernick, as far as someone that took a stand and is going to pay the price for it.
Yeah,
I guess we'll see. But,
yes, and
yeah.
that's also true. And you know, Colin Kaepernick is a polarizing figure. This, and maybe it's just me, but this Kaepernick's was there was kind of a build up to how his stuff went down. This one was just. It was a pretty sudden.
He got fired last week.
Yeah, got fired last week.
And 1 week later, there's
bang,
a lawsuit.
There's a lawsuit.
It's fast.
So
that was fast. Yes. That's amazing.
As they say, that escalated quickly. I think that's in a movie.
I don't know what movie, but
I think it was Anchorman, you know, with the trident and all that stuff. But anyway, yeah, it escalated quickly, and I'll be curious to see how it all plays out, because there are, you know, ramifications for that for a lot of different things. So
Ross, do you think Ross will be in danger of losing his team, because if this is proven correct?
I would say yes.
Would you? Yeah, I'm torn on that one. I don't know. I mean, I think it's possible for sure.
Okay, well, here's my question then. You know, we talked last week a little bit about Pete Rose and betting on games and things like that. Basically, he's betting on his team to lose so that he could, you know, I mean,
Well,
you're tampering with the integrity of the game. I think, gosh, I don't know. I'm glad I'm not the one deciding that. If
Yeah.
I was, I would have to think. I'd have to look at that real hard, because, wow, that's tough.
It is damning to be an owner and pay someone to lose on your head
Yeah.
coach to
Yep.
lose. That's almost unforgivable, really.
Yeah, I
mean,
think so too.
I mean, if you're a fan of that team, would you still be a fan of that team?
Well, you would have to sure question what their motives are going into each game.
Yeah, you sure would.
Yeah. So, was there anything else you wanted to cover on that, Monty?
You know, we could talk all day on this, Jeff, but
I think we
have
could.
other topics and we're running over already, so maybe
right.
we should call this one a day, huh?
All right, sounds good. Well, let us know what you think, and we'll see if you guys agree with us, disagree with us, and we'll go on to the next topic. Signing off for this one.
All right, over and out.